There are three positions that almost guarantee a man finishes before he wants to. And the frustrating truth is, they're probably your favorites. Maybe you've noticed it, maybe you've tried to push through it, maybe you've blamed yourself, your age, your body, without ever understanding what was actually happening or why. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly which positions they are, exactly why your body responds the way it does in them, and most importantly, exactly what to do about it. Because this is fixable completely, practically, tonight fixable. And by the time this video is done, you are going to have everything you need. Why this happens, the physiology of finishing too fast. Before we name the positions, I want to give you something more valuable than a list. I want to give you the understanding behind the list. Because when you understand why your body responds the way it does in certain positions, the fix stops feeling like a workaround and starts feeling like something you are genuinely in control of. And that shift from confusion to understanding is where everything changes. So let's talk about what is actually happening in your body when ejaculation arrives faster than you want it to. The ejaculatory reflex is controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. Think of the sympathetic nervous system as your body's accelerator. It governs the fight or flight response. It drives urgency. It speeds things up. When it activates strongly, everything in your body moves toward a conclusion, including ejaculation. Now here is the key thing to understand. The sympathetic nervous system does not activate in response to one single trigger. It responds to the total accumulation of stimulation. Physical tension in your muscles. The intensity of friction and pressure on the most sensitive parts of your body, your heart rate, your breathing, your emotional and psychological state, and even visual input. When multiple triggers activate simultaneously, and certain sexual positions are extraordinarily efficient in doing exactly that, the sympathetic nervous system reaches its threshold faster than you can consciously manage, and the ejaculatory reflex fires. This is not weakness. This is not failure. This is not age. This is physiology. Specifically, it is the compounding of multiple physiological triggers happening at the same time, driven in large part by the mechanics of the position you are in. There is also a psychological layer that sits on top of all of this. And for men over 60 in particular, it is one I want to address directly: performance anxiety. The fear of finishing too fast is, clinically speaking, one of the most powerful accelerants of finishing too fast. When a man enters a sexual encounter carrying anxiety about ejaculatory control, that anxiety activates the sympathetic nervous system before physical stimulation even begins. The body is already partway to the threshold before anything has happened. And then, when stimulation begins, particularly in a high trigger position, the remaining distance to the finish line is far shorter than it should be. It is a self-reinforcing cycle. The fear creates the tension. The tension accelerates the response. The response confirms the fear. And the next encounter begins with even more anxiety already loaded into the system. Understanding this cycle is the first step to breaking it. And breaking it begins with knowing exactly which positions are doing the most damage and why. Let's go through them one by one. Position number 1, missionary, man on top. Let's start with the most classic position in the repertoire. Missionary, man on top, face-to-face, full body contact. It is intimate. It is emotionally connecting, and for a very specific set of physiological reasons, it is one of the most reliable triggers for early ejaculation that exists. Here's what is happening in your body when you are in this position. First, pelvic floor muscle tension. When a man is on top supporting his own body weight on his arms and knees while simultaneously thrusting, his pelvic floor muscles are under significant sustained contraction. And here is the critical piece of anatomy that most men have never been taught. The pelvic floor muscles are directly involved in the ejaculatory reflex. Specifically, it is the rhythmic involuntary contraction of the bulbospongiosus and ischiocavernosus muscles, both part of the pelvic floor, that drives ejaculation itself. When your pelvic floor is already held in sustained tension because of the physical demands of the position, holding your body up, controlling your movement, managing the mechanics of thrusting, you are essentially preloading the ejaculatory mechanism. You are tightening the very muscles that, when they contract involuntarily, produce ejaculation. And you are doing it continuously throughout the entire encounter. The ejaculatory threshold is therefore reached faster, often significantly faster. not because of anything you did wrong, but because of the mechanical demands of the position itself. Second, full body physical load. In missionary, you are managing your own weight, your partner's comfort, the angle and rhythm of movement, and your own arousal simultaneously. That is a significant physical and cognitive load. Physical exertion raises heart rate and breathing rate, both of which are sympathetic nervous system activators. The more your heart rate climbs, the closer your body moves toward its ejaculatory threshold. Third, maximum friction and stimulation. The missionary position, particularly with deep thrusting, creates sustained, intense friction along the full length of the penis, including the frenulum and the glans, which are the two most neurologically sensitive regions. Sustained, intense, rhythmic stimulation of these areas is the most direct route to ejaculatory reflex activation that exists. And fourth, the performance pressure dimension. Face to face in full view of your partner, with the full weight of the encounter on your body and your movement, missionary carries more psychological performance pressure than almost any other position. For men over 60 who may already be carrying some degree of performance anxiety into the bedroom, that pressure is a significant additional sympathetic nervous system trigger, all four of these forces operating simultaneously in a single position. That is why missionary, for all its emotional appeal, is physiologically one of the fastest routes to an ending that arrives too soon. Position number 2, doggy-style rear entry. Now, let's talk about the second position on this list. And for many men, this one comes as a genuine surprise because doggy style is often thought of as a position where a man feels most in control. Physiologically speaking, however, it is one of the highest stimulation configurations possible. And high stimulation, as we now understand, means a faster route to the ejaculatory threshold. Here is what is happening. The rear entry angle creates deep penetration almost automatically. The geometry of the position allows for a depth and angle of stimulation that is significantly greater than most other positions. And deep penetration means sustained, intense contact with the most sensitive regions of the penis on every single thrust. Specifically, the glans, the frenulum, and the corona of the penis are in continuous high-pressure contact. These are the areas with the highest concentration of nerve endings in the male body. Sustained, rhythmic, deep stimulation of these areas is, neurologically speaking, the most efficient possible route to triggering the ejaculatory reflex. But the mechanics of the position are only part of the story. The visual dimension of rear entry is the second major factor, and it is one that is almost never discussed in clinical terms but deserves to be. Sexual arousal has both a physical and a neurological component. The visual cues available in the rear entry position, the visual context of the encounter itself, create a significant additional layer of sympathetic nervous system activation that compounds the physical stimulation already occurring. In practical terms, what you see in this position activates arousal pathways in the brain simultaneously with what you feel physically. Both channels are firing at high intensity at the same time, and the cumulative neurological load pushes the sympathetic nervous system toward its threshold considerably faster than either channel would do independently. Add to this the fact that in doggy style, the man is again in the active thrusting role, which means pelvic floor tension, physical exertion, elevated heart rate, and all of the sympathetic nervous system triggers we identified in missionary are present here as well. The result is a position that combines maximum physical stimulation with maximum visual arousal cues with maximum physical exertion. In terms of ejaculatory latency, the time between beginning and finishing, this is one of the most challenging configurations a man can be in, and yet it remains one of the most popular because it feels extraordinary, which is, of course, precisely the problem. Now, before I get to the third position, I want to pause for just a moment. Because if what I've shared so far is already starting to connect dots for you, if you're beginning to understand why certain experiences in the bedroom have played out the way they have, I want you to know that there is a complete guide available that takes everything I teach on this channel and builds it into a single structured roadmap. The complete guide pieces the entire puzzle of men's sexual health together. From fixing erection and performance issues at the foundation to the specific techniques that make a man genuinely exceptional in bed after 60, to how to bring your partner to the same level of desire and engagement as you. so that the connection between you is firing on every cylinder, not just some of them. It is not a collection of tips. It is a handheld, beginning-to-end journey through everything a man over 60 needs to know to perform with confidence, connect with depth, and enjoy his sex life the way he deserves to. I made a full video walking through exactly what the program covers and who it is for. The link is pinned in the comment section and sitting in the video description right now. Go and watch it after this video. I think it is going to land with you in a significant way. Now let's get to position number 3, and this one I promise you is the one that surprises men the most. Position number 3, certain cowgirl angles, woman on top. This is the position that consistently surprises men when I bring it up in a clinical context. Because the immediate assumption is, if she is on top and he is not doing the physical work, surely this is the position where he has the most control. Not always, and here is exactly why. The issue with certain cowgirl angles is not about physical exertion. It is about stimulation geometry. When a woman is on top and leans forward, or when the angle of her hips creates a specific forward tilt, the position produces intense, concentrated pressure directly on the frenulum and the glands of the penis. These are, as we established, the most neurologically sensitive areas of the male anatomy. And in certain cowgirl variations, particularly with a forward-leaning angle, they receive sustained, focused stimulation that is almost impossible to manage or modulate. The man in this position has limited ability to control the rhythm, the depth, or the angle of movement. The pace and pressure are largely determined by his partner. And if the angle is one that creates concentrated glands stimulation, even at a relatively gentle pace, the ejaculatory threshold is reached quickly with very little warning and very little opportunity to apply any of the control techniques that might otherwise help. There is also a second dimension to this position that is worth naming honestly. For many men, particularly men over 60, who may carry some degree of performance anxiety, the visual and psychological experience of the woman on top position can be intensely arousing in a way that compounds the physical stimulation already occurring. Watching a partner in this position, the loss of physical control, the visual intimacy of the encounter, activates the same dual-channel arousal dynamic we identified in rear entry. Physical stimulation and neurological arousal firing simultaneously. And when both channels are operating at high intensity, sympathetic nervous system reaches its threshold faster than either channel would drive it independently. The important distinction here is that not all cowgirl angles are equal. This is not a position to abandon entirely. It is a position to understand and to modify deliberately. And I will show you exactly how to do that in the fix section coming up. But first, let's talk about why all of this lands differently and sometimes harder for men over 60 specifically. The over 60 dimension, why this hits differently after 60. I want to take a moment here to speak directly to where you are in life because the research on ejaculatory control and aging contains something that surprises most men the first time they hear it. Aging affects ejaculatory control in two opposing directions, and understanding which direction applies to you and why is essential for making sense of your own experience. For some men, the natural neurological changes of aging produce delayed ejaculation, a longer time to reach the threshold, reduced sensitivity, and sometimes difficulty reaching climax at all. This is the experience many men expect when they think about sex after 60, but for a significant subset of men over 60, particularly those dealing with performance anxiety, those with a long history of rapid masturbation habits developed earlier in life, or those experiencing reduced sexual frequency, the opposite is true. The ejaculatory threshold becomes lower, control becomes more difficult, and the positions and triggers we have discussed today have a more pronounced effect than they might have had in younger years. Why does this happen? Several reasons, and they work together. The first is the anxiety arousal feedback loop, which I described earlier, and which is significantly amplified in men over 60. The history of experiences in the bedroom, the good ones and the difficult ones, accumulates over decades. Men who have experienced episodes of early ejaculation carry that history into subsequent encounters. The anticipatory anxiety is higher, the sympathetic nervous system is more preloaded, and the threshold is therefore reached more quickly. The second reason is reduced sexual frequency. For many men in this age group, the frequency of sexual activity has decreased compared to earlier decades for a variety of reasons, including relationship dynamics, health, and life circumstances. Reduced frequency means the body becomes less regularly calibrated to the experience of sustained arousal without immediate resolution. The ejaculatory reflex, in a sense, becomes more hair trigger, less accustomed to the sustained build of a full sexual encounter. The third reason, and this is one I want to name specifically because it is almost never discussed, is the impact of decades of rapid masturbation habits. Many men developed masturbation habits earlier in life that prioritize speed, often out of necessity, out of privacy constraints, out of the simple mechanics of a younger man's solo experience. Over decades, this conditions the ejaculatory reflex toward a faster timeline. The body learns through thousands of repetitions that arousal moves quickly toward resolution, and that conditioning does not disappear simply because the context has changed. This is not something to feel shame about. It is physiology shaped by habit, and habits with the right approach can be reshaped. The fourth dimension is performance pressure, and I want to speak to this one with particular care. Men over 60 bring a unique combination of experience and vulnerability into the bedroom. They know what good sex feels like. They have a reference point for what they want to deliver. And when the body doesn't cooperate the way it once did, when things move faster than they want, the gap between expectation and experience can feel acutely painful. That gap generates pressure. Pressure generates sympathetic nervous system activation, and sympathetic nervous system activation, as we now understand very clearly, accelerates the very problem the man is trying to prevent. Understanding this cycle is not just intellectually useful. It is the foundation of every practical fix I am about to share with you. The fix. What actually works? All right, this is the section I know you have been waiting for, and I want to deliver it the way a good friend who happens to be a clinician would, directly, warmly, and practically. No fluff, no vague advice, just the things that genuinely work. Let's go through them one by one. Fix number 1, the stop-start method. This is one of the oldest and most well-validated techniques in sex therapy. First described by researcher James Siemens and later refined by Masters and Johnson, and it works. The principle is simple. During sexual activity, when you feel yourself approaching the point of no return, stop completely. Allow the level of arousal to decrease by about 30%, then resume. The goal is not to white-knuckle your way through the experience. The goal is to teach your body, through repeated practice, that arousal can build, plateau, and continue without immediately tipping over the threshold. You are literally retraining the ejaculatory reflex, extending the range of arousal your body learns to tolerate before resolution becomes inevitable. In the early stages, this may feel disruptive. It may feel like it interrupts the flow of the encounter. That is temporary. With practice, and I mean real consistent practice, not occasional attempts, the range of control expands significantly. Men who commit to this method consistently report meaningful improvement within 4 to 6 weeks. Fix number 2, the squeeze technique. Similar in principle to the stop-start method, the squeeze technique involves applying gentle but firm pressure to the head of the penis, the glands, at the point just before ejaculation feels inevitable. The pressure is held for 10 to 20 seconds, which reduces the urgency of the reflex and allows arousal to decrease without ejaculation occurring. This can be done by you or by your partner, and involving your partner in this process, framed as a shared technique rather than a problem to manage alone, often transforms the dynamic of the encounter entirely. It becomes collaborative. It becomes something you are navigating together. And that shift in itself reduces performance anxiety significantly. Fix number 3, pelvic floor training. This is the fix that surprises men the most, and it is, clinically speaking, one of the most powerful interventions available. A randomized controlled trial published in Clinical Urology Research found that pelvic floor muscle training improved ejaculatory control in up to 82% of participants. Results that rival or exceed many pharmaceutical interventions with none of the side effects. The pelvic floor muscles, the same muscles involved in the ejaculatory reflex, can be trained voluntarily and crucially to relax deliberately. A man with strong conscious control over his pelvic floor can, with practice, modulate the tension in these muscles during sexual activity, reducing the preloading effect that positions like missionary create and extending ejaculatory latency significantly. The exercises themselves are straightforward. You are looking for the muscles you would use to stop the flow of urine midstream. Contract them, hold for 5 seconds, release fully, repeat 10 times, 3 sets per day. Within 4 to 6 weeks of consistent practice, the difference in control is noticeable. Within 12 weeks, it can be transformative. Fix number 4, breathing regulation. This one is simple, immediate, and underused. Deep, slow, diaphragmatic breathing directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is in effect the biological opposite of the sympathetic nervous system. It is the brake to the accelerator. When you breathe slowly and deeply during sexual activity, you are actively counteracting the sympathetic nervous system activation that drives early ejaculation. Practically speaking, inhale slowly for 4 counts, exhale slowly for 6. Keep the breath low in your body, belly breathing, not chest breathing. Do this continuously throughout the encounter, and especially during the moments when arousal is building toward the threshold. It takes practice to maintain breath awareness during sex, but even partial implementation makes a measurable difference. And combined with the other techniques I've described, it compounds their effectiveness significantly. Fix number 5, position modifications that extend latency. Now, let's talk about the positions that work in your favor, the ones that reduce sympathetic nervous system activation, lower pelvic floor tension, and give you the most natural control over ejaculatory latency. The first is side lying, the spooning position. In this position, both partners lie on their sides with the man behind. The depth of penetration is naturally reduced. The pelvic floor is in a relaxed, non-weight-bearing state. Physical exertion is minimal, heart rate stays lower, and the pace of the encounter is naturally slower and more regulated. For men working on ejaculatory control, this position is one of the most therapeutically useful available. It allows for genuine intimacy and sensation while removing most of the mechanical triggers that accelerate the reflex. The second is the seated position. Man seated on the edge of the bed or in a chair, partner on top facing him. This configuration allows face-to-face intimacy and emotional connection while distributing the physical control differently. The man's pelvic floor is relaxed, his physical exertion is minimal, and crucially, he retains the ability to use his hands to gently guide the pace and depth of movement, giving him far more conscious control over the level of stimulation than either missionary or standard rear entry allows. The third is modified missionary with shallow thrusting. Rather than abandoning missionary, which many men are understandably reluctant to do, given its emotional appeal, modify it. Shallow thrusting reduces the intensity of gland stimulation dramatically. Consciously relaxing the pelvic floor between thrusts, pausing periodically, and maintaining slower, more deliberate movement all extend latency significantly while preserving the intimacy and connection that make the position meaningful in the first place. The goal is not to avoid the positions you love. The goal is to understand them well enough to move through them on your own terms. And if today's video has opened a door for you, if you are sitting here thinking that you want more than individual pieces, that you want the complete roadmap, I want to make sure you know that it exists. The complete guide takes everything I teach across this channel and builds it into a single structured beginning to end journey through men's sexual health after 60. It starts at the foundation, fixing the erection and performance issues that undermine confidence before anything else can be addressed. It moves through the specific techniques that make a man genuinely exceptional in bed after 60. Not just functional, but extraordinary. And it finishes with something most programs never touch: how to bring your partner to the same level of desire and engagement as you, so that the connection between you is full, mutual, and deeply satisfying for both of you. It is the entire puzzle pieced together with someone guiding you by the hand from the very beginning to the very end. I made a full video walking through exactly what the program covers, who it is designed for, and what men who have gone through it are experiencing on the other side. That video link is pinned in the comment section right now. It is also sitting in the video description. Go and watch it. I made it specifically for the man who is done leaving things to chance and ready to take the whole thing seriously. I think it is going to mean something to you. If this video helped you today, if something landed, if something finally made sense, if you are walking away with something you are going to actually use, please share it with someone who needs it. Leave me a comment below. Tell me which of the 3 positions surprised you most. Tell me which fix you are going to try first. This community is built on honest conversation, and every comment you leave helps me understand what to bring you next. Subscribe if you have not already, and know that every single week, this is what I show up to do. Give you the real information, the clinical depth, and the genuine care that men's sexual health deserves. You are not alone in this. You are not out of options, and the best years of your sex life are not necessarily behind you. I'm Dr. Julia Rhodes. I'll see you in the next one.